Hi everyone, it's Monica, and welcome back to Tailor-Made Cards for You. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my second card for the Crafter's Castle Challenge blog, and our sponsor for the month is CreateForLess. Last month I created this cute little pink card, and today I'm going to be creating for you a mixed media masculine card. Many of the products that I use you can easily get over at CreateForLess, but I wanted to specifically point out how generous they were providing us product to use for this inspiration video. Now the card that I just showed you with the little girl with the wings is the card that I shared with you at the beginning of the month. And CreateForLess provided me with this wonderful stencil from THoltz that has all the circles. Now the distressed crayon is also something that I used for this video, as well as some of the distressed oxides. And those I had in my stash, but you can certainly grab those over at CreateForLess as well. Now the next card that I wanted to share with you is a couple of the Memorial Day cards that I created. And these were for the Save the Crafters YouTube hop that a lot of you probably are familiar with. I created these two cards. The hop started on Memorial Day, so I thought they were a perfect inspiration. And the stencil that I used for that one is these stars, again from THoltz. And this is a stencil that CreateForLess had also provided for us to share with you some inspiration. I also used some of the summer cardstock that is also over at CreateForLess for my Memorial Day card. And as you can see, they have lots of colors. Now, I chose the summer pack, but they do also have some other season packs which have different colors, which will be great for any occasion. All right, the next stencil I want to share with you is from PA Essentials. And this is a stencil I haven't created with yet, but I definitely wanted to share it with you and let you know that I will be doing some videos on this with this stencil as well to give you some inspiration. Now the next couple of products that I'm going to be sharing with you are the products that I'm going to be using for the card I'm going to create today. And I created a little ATC card using this pattern stencil right here, along with these foam stamps. I created a theme masculine cinema card, and this is the card that I'm going to be creating for you today. So let's go ahead and get started. Now sometimes when I sit down to create, I don't necessarily know where my card's going to take me. So I went ahead and I started out with an ATC card because I knew I wanted to use that stencil. And I wanted to try to go ahead and shift the stencil to create a different pattern, not necessarily the pattern that was on the stencil. And I'm going to be sharing that with you as well. Now, after I created the ATC, then I went ahead and I decided on the cinema theme because I had a reel of old film tape that we got at a garage sale, and I wanted to add that to my card. So an ATC card, if you've never created one, is just a small card that is measuring, I believe, 2.5 by 3.5. And a lot of people struggle with ATC cards because you don't have a lot of room to work with. But I want to go ahead and show you an easy design to create an ATC card by just using a stencil and a couple of stamps. Now this stencil obviously is oversized, so I went ahead and tried to figure out exactly how I wanted my pattern to look. And then ultimately I decided to have the 2 squares going across and 3 down. And then I grabbed a couple of inks. I'm going to be using one distress oxide, which is the fired brick, and then I'm going to be using a distress ink, which is the black soot. And I'm also going to be using these little blending tools, which I really like. I like that I have different sizes for them, especially when I'm going to add some color to small areas. I can easily get one of the smaller brushes and control where I'm putting my ink. And then when I was finished with the red, I wiped off my brush and I shifted the stencil a little bit. Now the way that I shifted it is, if you can look at the stencil, some of it has solid plastic. So what I did is I just shifted the stencil so the solid plastic of the stencil is over the squares that I just marked. I didn't want to use the stencil part that had those lines. I wanted my blocks to be solid color. So that's why I did the shifting. Now you're going to see when I lift up my stencil, I did actually get part of those lines, which actually was pretty nice. I love it when I'm able to create a background that is organic. It is just an extra bonus. It's not pristine, and I don't go for pristine. That is not my style at all. So I was really happy with the results that I got on the background. All right, so once I was finished adding my ink to my ATC card, then I wanted to go ahead and mat it. So I got some black cardstock and I added my ATC card to the black cardstock. And then I took my guillotine trimmer and I just trimmed it probably less than 1/4 of an inch. I just wanted a small border, so I didn't really measure it out. I just kind of lined it up against the white card so I would have a small border of black. All right, so after I trimmed down my cardstock, then it was time to go ahead and pull out some of my rubber stamps. Now, the stamps that I'm going to be using today are from the THoltz collection, and I believe the set that I'm using is called Steampunk. And I'm going to go ahead and use 3 of the stamps from this set. Okay, so the first stamp of 3 that I'm going to be working with is a definition stamp. And this is the definition of the word curiosity. And this is going to go right on the bottom of my ATC. Now, the ink that I'm using is archival ink, and archival ink works great, especially with these deep etched red rubber stamps. I know sometimes when I'm working with an acrylic stamp, if I'm using archival ink, it makes the stamp stick to my paper, but for the deep red rubber, it's perfect. Now, the next stamp that I'm going to work with now is the 3 Gentlemen. And when you have a busy background, silhouette stamps are great because there's a lot of black that you're going to stamp, and it really helps the image to stand out and be a little bit more vivid. And then finally, the last stamp that I'm using is the Admit one. Now, because this is a word, you want to be a little bit strategic when you are stamping this, especially on a busy background. So I made sure that I positioned the stamp when there was some white showing. So that way, when I did finally stamp the word, you were able to see the Admit one really easily. Now, at the end of the video, I will have a list of all the products that I've used. So if there are any stamps or any of the products that you are interested in, be sure to check out my links. I do get a small percentage as an affiliate when you do click on the links at no extra cost to you. So I appreciate your support, and that's how I support my channel as well. All right, so once I have my stamping done, my ATC for the most part is complete. Now it's time to go ahead and put it on a card. Now, when I was trying to come up with an idea for my card, I did use some designer paper, but I didn't have another piece of that. And also that film reel from the THoltz collection, I think it's called film ribbon. I used the last piece. But I did have this film ribbon in my own stash that I thought I would use and create my own background. And it's thin enough where I can kind of create stripes. And that was my idea, is to create a background using these film reels. Okay, so once I had all of my reels cut out, I went ahead and I lined my white cardstock up on my mixed media mat so that way I can use the grid to make sure I get straight lines. Now, the idea that I had here was to create a striped background using these film reels. So I'm just starting in the middle, and then I'm just kind of spacing them out to make sure I have even spacing on my background. Now, if you don't have film reels, which you may not, you can easily use really thin washi tape. But I am going to have some of these film reels, I believe, in my shop if I get around to listing them. I have a whole reel of these, and I can go ahead and put together some packages. So if this is something you want to use for your mixed media projects, you'll be able to grab them out of my shop. But again, you can easily use some really thin washi tape to create your background. So once I had adhered all of my film, I went ahead and got out one of my dies from Sizzix, and I cut the right bottom corner using this die cut. This is a new die cut that I just recently got, and I was excited to give it a try. I was a little concerned that it wouldn't go through the film reels, but it seemed to work just fine. And it creates a nice kind of eclectic pattern that I thought would be great for this card. And then I took some adhesive and I added it to the back of my ATC card, and I adhered it to my white cardstock. And then after the ATC card was adhered to the white cardstock, then I went ahead and I adhered the bigger piece of white cardstock to some black cardstock just to give it some nice a nice black border. Now, one thing that I didn't think about when I was actually adding my film reels to create my striped background is I didn't think about the fact that on my prototype card, I had stamped on my white cardstock. But of course I can't do that because I have those film reels. So now I'm going to go ahead and have to take another piece of white cardstock and type my sentiment on the white cardstock, and then I'm going to have to use some foam tape for that. Now the sentiment that I'm talking about is the word cinema, and I'm using those foam stamps from THoltz, and I'm just using my Misty and I'm just stamping it right on. I don't see a lot of people using these foam stamps, and I think they're really great. They came out intended using for more of the mixed media projects like material or something that was a little bit more porous, but you can certainly use them on white cardstock like I'm doing here, and they stamp really great. They get a lot of nice ink saturated into the foam, and they come out really vibrant, which is what I really like. And then once I was happy with my stamping, I trimmed up my cinema sentiment, and then I used my chopper to round my corners. And now I'm ready to go ahead and adhere it to the top of my card using some foam tape. All right, so at this point, I could have easily just went ahead and added my black cardstock to my base of my card, and I could have called it a day. But I did want to add one more element to my card, and I just happen to have these stamped out tickets from the THoltz ticket booth collection, and I had already had them all cut out. Sometimes when I have these little embellishments, I just stamp and die cut several so I have them to use, and this little pack was just sitting right next to me and it worked out perfectly. So one of the stamps in the ticket booth collection is a theater stamp, or I should say a theater ticket, and I went ahead and I just grabbed that one and I added it to my cinema card because I just thought it was a great final touch. And with that, my card was complete. All I needed to do was to use this little paper clip to add my embellishment, and I did add a little bit of adhesive after the fact because I wanted to make sure that that ticket didn't come off. But the little paper clip was a perfect addition, and that was another product that I actually got from CreateForLess, so I wanted to make sure that I showed you how to use some of these cute little embellishments as well. Alright, so hopefully I've given you some ideas on how to turn an ATC card into a 5x7 card, or you could even actually turn it into an A2 card. But you start out with a smaller piece and then just add to it. So as always, I'll leave a list of all the products that I've used to create the card along with the links to the stores. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button before you head out. All right, everybody, thanks so much for stopping by, and we'll see you again next time.